So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a drawing for a poster study, but I just want to show that the drawings usually for poster study are just slightly different than a drawing that I would do for the final painting. Now, the drawing for poster study, for the most part, all I'm trying to do is just get the kind of major shapes going on here. I don't need to get too crazy about details because all I want to do is have a nice drawing that I can transfer over to a canvas to do a little study of. Now, if you feel confident, you could take this same study and then, instead of doing a drawing like this, you could draw right onto your canvas. So really what I'm looking for when I'm doing a study like this, or the drawing for a study, is I'm looking for the basic proportions, but also I want to look for light and shadow. So I want to get the contour of the objects. I want to get them to scale, but then I also want to make sure that the objects interact with one another in the right scale, but have the idea of form, light and shadow. So what I usually tend to do is just kind of draw this way, just kind of get these pretty much big shapes interacting with one another. Again, this is really just, you want to find out what the height to width is of these objects. So I'm just going to take a quick measurement up in front of me. That is equal to that. So this is actually about the halfway. So this has to just come out a touch more. So before I got too far, I want to take just some basic measurements. So if this is the center line, this height is equal to this width right here. Again, this is just trying to get parameters for my big major proportions so that when I go in to paint this, I kind of have everything worked out now. Like I said, if you feel like you can get the major proportions and do it a la prima, that's totally fine too. But I like to just make sure that everything is pretty close by doing a transfer drawing. Now, transfer drawings are just, I'm going to take this drawing and just focus on it, and then I'll show you how to transfer this over to a canvas for the next step. So I like to draw and then measure. And I mean, you can go in any order that you want to, but I like the idea that, I'm trying to, as Michelangelo would say, the caliper should be in the eyes, not in the hand. So you want to kind of develop your senses to be able to take a look and see this information, and not always have to rely on your tools, because I think of it almost like sketching. If you had to measure everything while you're sketching, you'll probably miss out on a lot of things, especially if you're ever trying to draw something moving quick. But doesn't mean you couldn't draw it. It just gets very difficult when things are moving. So what I can do is take the width of this lemon here. That's about the same width of this, is about the same width of the lemon, so that feels pretty good. I know that just comes up a little bit. This doesn't come over the top here. It's just a little lower. And the width of that lemon is about the width of that lemon. Yeah, so that's pretty close to that. I know that light is falling here, so there's a little bit of shadow. Coming down, there's a ton of reflected light, so it's hard to see what's going on. There we go. go. Just a quick. Again, a poster study is really just, I'm trying to get the poster, just the idea of what the major painting is going to look like. So I just need to make sure that, for the most part, the objects are related to one another and in the right scale. Because also, my poster studies, when I work through them, I like to kind of work through my ideas visually. So what I'll do is just do a nice quick little painting, these small little paintings that can then kind of be like the first run through with my information to see if I want to take it to the next stage. So I don't try to fuss too much over perfection. I do want to get it as close as I can, but I don't want to kind of spend all day measuring. That's going to be for the next step. So this is kind of my quick run through for this, and then I'll come back and assess how the poster study came out, and then from there either change the composition or just live with it. This comes over to about there. There's some space between these two. Now this comes up through here. Also, what you want to try to do is just not move too much. I try to just stay in one spot. And if you need to, just kind of align yourself with something either in the background that will make it so you can't always get back in the same spot. This stick is kind of nice because it adds just an element of vertical to the composition. This feels like push over a touch. I'm above this ellipse, so it can't be defined as a perfect straight line. And then sometimes what I'll do is just take a measurement like this, meaning that the bottom of this to this, and let's see if it relates to just any old thing. All right, so it's about the width of the bowl. Width of the bowl. Find that on measuring. And so the width, yep, is pretty good. So it's pretty much on track. If it's not perfect, it's not a big deal. There's going to be a refinement stage when I get to the next step too, which is the painting part, which I can adjust as I go. These are just, thinking, let's get the major shapes. And sometimes what I'll do is just knock in some value to show, hey, this is shadow. Shadow down here. Sometimes it's even good to just put in some value, because value may help me kind of see the value pattern that I see up in front of me. So maybe by putting that in, I can then see that this kind of, I'm looking at how these shapes intertwine with one another. So this has to be equal to this. That equals that. That equals that. Just thinking symmetry. Now, you don't have to draw everything the way that you see it in front of you, you can kind of idealize a form if you'd really like to. So that's why kind of running through this information the first time will make it so that you're kind of taking a look at it and saying, do I need it exactly how I see it? A lot of the times I'll change something. So this intertwines here. This is connected. Like this space. This can get just a touch bigger. This comes over. Stem connects up through. It's a nice little piece of green leaf that kind of pokes over there. Pokes in, it's in the shadow. This is all in shadow here. So as it feels, I take some measurements and everything feels like it's in the right place, I can then begin to kind of refine just a little bit. Looking for where the highlight kind of falls on the form. Right there. Very subtle ellipse here. Again, depending on the size of the painting, it's not even sure if it's going to show up. This tiny little line up here. So I don't want to fuss too much. But let me go up here. Just kind of doing a pass over all the forms. Again, just abbreviating some of this information. This feels pretty good. Maybe a touch too thin. We are. This cuts over. That's in shadow. Go. Feels pretty good. I don't have to worry about the scale because normally what I'll do is I'll take it into my computer and then I'll scan it and then kind of play around with, what size do I want to reprint it at. So you can either go to a copy machine store and do it that way too. You could grid this and then do it that way, but whatever way that's going to get it onto your canvas. We are. Here we are. This goes here. Touch of green poking through. There's some green over here. Cast shadow. Go. That comes up through here. Gonna make sure all this connects so you can draw through if you need to. Go. This comes over and up and comes in just a touch. I will draw in just a little bit of the highlight. It's clear on these forms. Not so clear there. Clear there. But not to get too crazy. Yeah, that's about it. So I'll now take this into Photoshop, scale it down, scale it up, try to fit probably onto something similar to a 6x9, so maybe like a 3x4.5, and then do a little study of it. So I'll show you in just a sec how to do a transfer drawing. So what I'm going to do is show how to transfer to a canvas. So I have a panel here, actually, a cradle panel that I have that's 4x6. I have my printout, which I printed out on the computer. This is 4x6 as well, and I'll use the guides usually to make sure it's the same size. So what I want to do is just take and cut right along these guides, and it's all sized up and ready to go. So should go pretty quick. So this just kind of saves a step so that you don't have to sit and fuss and try to get your drawing perfect, or you could draw right on the canvas if you really wanted to, but you could be fussing over trying to get it perfect for a little while. So this just makes it so that you do the drawing first, transfer it over. You don't have to worry about the drawing anymore. So normally what I'll do now is put a piece of tape on this, create like a hinge. I usually will get 2 pieces, just kind of hinge the bottom. But also what I want to do now is just get some paint and add it to the back. So normally what I'll do is just get some burnt umber and I'll squirt some onto my palette and then just get a little turpentine and add it to the pile. You don't want to add too much to it though. Not too much, not too little. You really want to get just the right consistency, and by doing this over and over, you'll see that you'll get it better with time. What I want to do is just outline where I want to add paint. So the turp just makes it so that it goes on thin. You don't want to add like big thick amounts of paint on your, transfer it onto your canvas. So you get a bigger brush here too. It's a little bit on the thin side. So if you you want to be very good about, placing this only where you are going to transfer. So I'm not going to transfer anything up here. I don't need to waste any paint. So then what I'll do is I'll usually hold it up to the light, just get a quick peek, make sure that I kind of covered everything I needed to. There we are. So now it looks good. Now what I do is I will let it sit for just a second, let that turp kind of evaporate just a touch, let it kind of sink in to the paper as well, and then when that feels good, I will just put it right on my canvas or panel. And then next what I want to do is just grab a red pen. So what I also like to do is make sure that I kind of size up. So I'm going to use this almost like with a ruler. Just want to make sure that my lines are pretty good and straight. So what happens is, just like a stylus, once I go over this line here, or I go over this paper that has burnt umber on the back, it'll now transfer that over. So you can see that line right here. What I'm going to do is just go over the whole canvas, or go over the whole drawing to transfer it over to the canvas. But the red pen is important too, because what it's going to do is take and make it so I can see where I've kind of gone over. So you can see, transfer a nice line there. Again, this is for a poster, so it doesn't have to be completely, you want to get a good proportion, and it has to be pretty accurate, but it doesn't have to be perfect. You can also kind of fix a little bit as you go, but what I want to kind of do is just abbreviate, because I don't want to get too crazy and caught up in like details. So I want to just make sure I'm gonna, the poster is really just to get kind of the essence of the setup, to see if I really want to take this to the next level and do a big version of it. So what I want to try to do is just get the contours, also the light and shadow on everything, and then just make sure that the proportions are good. So flip back and forth. This will make it so I can see what's been transferred and what's not as well. Sometimes I think I got everything, and then you'll kind of miss a spot or two, which is no big deal. There's the highlights right there. So make a little mark. And again, this is really just the essence of the painting. So there we are. There's the lemon. And, this is not a perfect drawing. Perfect drawing is like the next step where, this is just to get a poster that is going to be the essence of the bigger painting. Back and forth. And as I'm doing this too, I'm remembering all the kind of observing that I was doing when I was doing the drawing too. So every time I come back to this, the more time you spend with these objects, the more you'll remember. So you're kind of building, remembering all the interactions you had when you were kind of studying them for the drawing. So I almost like kind of know what to expect in a sense. Go. It's good. Here we are. So that feels pretty good. Let's get a little more here. Feels like it's a little light. So then what I'll do at the end is just kind of flip back and forth. See if there's anything maybe I didn't get. Sometimes just little subtleties, even though I don't want to go too crazy with subtleties. And then I know that there's also a second line down here. Just kind of rule that in for now. And then there we have it. Take the tape off. And then we have the transferred drawing. So today what I'm going to do is show how I do a poster study. So I have my drawing transferred over, just showed how to do that. Now what I'm going to do is just kind of go for it. And I don't want to be too crazy with detail here. So I grabbed a Trekell brush number 4 that's actually not perfect. So you can see that the head is a little bit frayed, or the brush ends are a little bit frayed. So having something like that will force you to not be so crazy about how you're applying paint, so I don't get too meticulous. So first what I want to do is maybe start with the bowl, start mixing some color of what I think I see. Very hard to, you know what, I'm going to actually go for something dark to just see if I can get darkest dark and maybe the lightest light. So sometimes what that does is just help set the painting up. So maybe in here, put some marks. I see that up in front of me, the setup is just a little bit dark in there. And then maybe grab some paint, put some highlights in. It could help kind of set everything up. So putting that down is good because now it's going to help set up this, which is just the white cloth. By putting this down, I can gauge kind of everything off of it. So sometimes what I'll do is just paint the lightest thing. Almost like as a color note to get like a little key, because now I can kind of gauge everything off this. Now I'm not too crazy thinking about like light fall off or anything like that. I can always go back and kind of adjust if I need to, but really just trying to get paint down, have some nice key elements to kind of gauge stuff off. So let's take a look at now the bowl is just got lots of color in it, so definitely gonna have to adjust. It's hard to get kind of the whole reflection and then all the color that's going on in there, because I definitely see some like purple. So let's get that down just for now. Just a couple color notes. So sometimes what I'll do is kind of pop through the painting, move a little bit quickly, just kind of see what colors I think I see, because sometimes it's not quite clear until you have elements to kind of surround things. So it's something like this dark over here. It was near black over there, but it's actually not. It's actually like a super dark green. So I'm just going to grab a little bit of cat green pale and my black, which is very much almost like a sap green, and just put this little key in here. And what that's going to do is make it so that I can kind of use that to kind of grow off of it now. So I know that there's definitely some kind of mix through some colors here, just kind of see there's definitely some there's reflection up through here, but I know that it is just a little bit lighter than that, so I'm going to use that to kind of gauge it. So also feels like it's a bit cooler, so I'll grab just a touch of ultramarine blue, go in here. There we go. So that feels pretty good. If you need to, you can totally just kind of scumble in some color too, meaning that I usually just grab a little bit of chirp and kind of spread it like the first pass. The problem with not having anything down is there's nothing to gauge everything off of. So it's very hard to kind of get anything accurate at this point, but I'm going to slowly kind of move into this painting, trying to find pieces that I can kind of build on for the next step. So I'm actually going to put a little bit of cat yellow on there. So usually something like the lemons are a great place to start, because, or even like the lime, but I'm probably going to start with a lemon, because it definitely feels like lemons aren't, I mean, they feel like there's not a ton of color variation going on in there. So if I just get, usually at the beginning what I'm trying to do is establish something easy to grab onto to make me feel good about the painting. So painting a lemon is typically one of the easier things that I can see in front of me up here. So what I'll do is just kind of start there and then build towards more of the complex stuff. But I'll build the complex stuff based off of this kind of easier thing to paint. So I grab raw umber because it's pretty much a dark yellow. You always want to grab a dark version of whatever hue that you're in. That feels pretty good. I'll highlight on there. Definitely come back to it, but grab a little bit of raw umber, put it up through here. There we go. Now I'll go over to the lime. Sometimes I'll even push the hue a little bit more. Maybe the chroma, I'll push it a little bit more. So let's take a look. Lightmost facing planes over here. That gets a little dark. Get the shadow in. There we go. Again, trying not to fuss too much over the information. It's really just, the essence of the painting that I'm trying to get. The brush gets a little muddy, clean it off, come back to it. You don't want to kind of contaminate everything. We are, and definitely if you're going to put a highlight on, you grab that white, clean your brush. Usually places like this, I love like a gnarly brush because it's going to just place like a kind of gnarly highlight on the form. So let's go with a little blue. So now I kind of have like these good staples to kind of work with. Let's get a little bit of dark in the background. Definitely want to keep some of that awesome underpainting, which is really just a tone. There we go. It's a nice blue yellow. It sits pretty well together. and ultramarine blue is what this color is, and it's pretty transparent. So I put it down, it's going to go on, but it's going to pick up some of that awesome, like I said, just tone of the canvas. So when I put it on a tone of a canvas and I kind of have all this information in here, all these brush strokes, I don't want to lose it. It'd be kind of pointless to kind of have it then, to have kind of put all that in. See kind of like a little key of warmth over there. I see a little key on the other side of dark. Just want to soften edges a little bit, but also make sure that this feels like reflected light up through here. Just makes it just a touch lighter. It's feeling pretty good. Start with the shadow. Feel like there's a nice hierarchy I could see in here. Then it gets lighter. But not too light. Where two objects meet in a shadow, even if they are contrast, I would still downplay it. Go. Tip that back a touch. Now it's a contrast area right here, so I gotta just soften it. I don't want to have a nice, I don't want to have a big, clear divide between the light and shadow here, because the edge of the cast shadow should just be a little bit softer. It's falling away from the form. So it's cast a little bit further past it, but I can also see that this feels a little bit on the warmer side. So you can see that I didn't nail the value right away, but I'm gonna just go back and finesse it into the right spot.